welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for showing interest and joining in. On this channel, we're going to talk about everything ballet that I wish I had when I was younger. Ballet talks, classes, technique tips, you name it. In today's video, we're actually going to be talking about the 3 reasons why I personally believe it's time for you to leave your dance studio. And so guys, I'm going to sprinkle in some story time in between these reasons. If you can see the change of scenery, it's because I'm in my office, the most well-lit room. So yes, let's get into it. Just a little disclaimer, you guys, this is just my personal experience. These stories are going to come from things that actually happened to me and when I knew it was time for me to leave my studio. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Like I always say, do your own research, look at other videos, talk to people, and always feel free to message me. Okay, let's jump into it. If you know me and you know my channel, this first one's not going to be a shocker, but if they bring up anything about the ideal ballet body or ballet body types or losing weight or honestly sometimes even gaining weight or what you should be eating, and they do not have certified staff on staff that is able to clinically and scientifically give you reason as to why you would need to change a diet or lose weight or gain weight, then you should be leaving. So the very first thing is if they have anything to say about weight loss or weight gain and they are not certified nutritionist or a clinical dietitian or anything along those lines, and they're telling you anything to do with your body style and your body shape, just anything in that regard, I would say that's a really big reason why I left my then studio that I was super poured into at the time. And so the story time I have behind this was I was actually seriously involved in my studio. I was doing conditioning, I was doing private lessons. My classes were like upwards of 20 plus hours a week. I was taking classes below me. I was asking to observe classes above me. Like I was super into going all in with ballet. And I'll never forget this. I was actually in a private lesson with one of my teachers and I was discussing, you know, my goals with dance, kind of asking me like, did I want to go professional or, you know, did I kind of want to stay more recreational? And I let him know, you know, I do have that intention of going professional. At the time, I did have that intention of going professional. And I just feared a little bit about my weight. And he said, well, you know, you could drop 10 pounds and you'd be, I guess, hireable is what he was implying, but along the lines of you would be a better fit if you lost a little bit of weight. And so I actually whittled myself down 10 pounds. I started getting more recognition from my other teachers. I started to see my muscles pop more, of course, because I was in a calorie deficit at this point. I developed other eating disorders during this time, and I just really went into a dark place where I wasn't even able to enjoy things like birthday cake, you know, and just really counting every calorie. I go back to that same teacher that was like, hey, drop the 10 pounds so you're in the ballet body shape. And he goes, wow, you lost a lot of weight. Like you're looking really skinny. Why don't you go home and eat a pizza and box of cookies to yourself? And at the time, even for as young as I was, I knew that this wasn't right. And I just told myself like, it just doesn't feel right, and this is probably not what I'm supposed to be doing with my body at such a young age. And so that was one of the really key reasons, the story times that leads into that key reason. Another story time was we actually were told pretty frequently when we would go on breaks after Nutcracker, just make sure you stay in ballet shape, make sure you watch what's on your plate. And this is very common to see at dance studios that are at that kind of higher tier. And while there's validity to that, is that, you know, you should be mindful of what you're putting in your mouth. That doesn't bring any credit to the fact that they're not certified to say this, and they're implying that if you overeat or don't stay in ballet shape that you're gonna lose everything, or, you know, it's like that's how it felt when I was younger. And that was pretty much another reason that led to me thinking this isn't probably the best place for me to be. One last note on this is that when I ended up transferring to another studio after being at this one where I'm bringing these story times from, there was other studios out there that never mentioned staying in ballet shape over winter break or the ideal ballet body. And that's when I knew that that was a toxic trait from the last dance studio, was because there was dance studios out there that never touched that, still brought me phenomenal technique. I still got into just as good of summer intensives with those dance studios. So I knew that that was something that was kind of one-off and unusual, just not necessary in the long run. So there are dance studios out there that don't bring that up, that are healthier and don't have those toxic traits to them. Okay, the second reason or sign I would say it's time for you to look elsewhere is they shine a light and put one or two dancers in the spotlight and everyone else kind of gets kicked to the dust. And I say this because it's very common to see this in dance studios where the teacher favors one or two students and kind of ignores the rest. And also from personal experience seeing this at some studios and not others. So the story time with this is that in my last year of that studio where the teacher told me to lose the weight, the very last year there in Nutcracker, I was promised that I would be in a certain role come the next year and I didn't get in it, which is okay. You know, at the time that was super frustrating because there was that empty promise there. But come to find out when we looked at the roster for who had what role in Nutcracker, I found out that one girl got Sugar Plum and Dewdrop and Snow Queen, like all the major roles you could think about in the Nutcracker, one person or one and one other person got those major roles. Everyone else was like corps de ballet and understudy, and you know, I understand that even in major companies there's going to be soloist roles, there's going to be corps de ballet, that's fine. But when that happens over and over and over again and there's no room for the underdog or the corps de ballet to improve, that becomes very toxic. And I just remember looking at that roster with my friend and we start discussing it. We're like, how does this one person literally have 5 roles? If you know anything about having one major solo in the Nutcracker, that is enough. That in and of itself, you're gonna be exhausted. Like just one solo alone, you're gonna be worked to the bone. How does one person take on 5 different solo roles? It blew my mind. And I just remember looking at my friend at the time who she had worked just as hard as me to get even one understudy spot for a soloist role. And we were just so frustrated in that moment. We just felt like all the hard work we'd put in over the year was kind of just unrecognized. And the thing about ballet is you work hard in class because you want that satisfaction of being on stage and being able to perform and be like, it was all worth it, or at least just for me and my friends at the time. And so when you lose out on that, it's so discouraging as a dancer to just be like, where did I go wrong? What did I do? And the truth is that it had nothing to do with me and everything to do with that studio and the director. And you know, looking back, I don't really feel like that was that director's intention. Maybe they were just thinking this is the person that can handle everything technically. But if that's the case, you know, give someone else a chance. Give the understudy a chance. Throw other people in there that can learn the roles. And so that was pretty much my second sign that it was time to move on. If you're at a studio and they only focus on 1 or 2 dancers, that is just poor management skills in my opinion. I think everyone should have a chance. You know, there's so many different ballets out there. There's so many different roles. There's fast roles, slow roles. There's roles with more elongation of the legs and roles that are more short and underneath you, jumping type roles and turning roles. And so if you have this eclecticness of dancers and this eclecticness of roles, then you should be able to kind of mix and match your dancers to those specific identities and pieces. And so I just find it as, I think it's a poor excuse to put one dancer in one role. And I really do try to rack my brain as to the reason that happened, but that was pretty much my second sign. It was time to move on. And the third reason is if you don't feel that you're progressing towards your goals, or you don't feel that you've made any kind of change since you've been there, and you put, I would say, at least a year of work into the studio and you don't see any kind of progress. And you know, this doesn't always have to do with the studio itself or the director or the teacher. It could be that you need to be taking on more hours. It could be that you need to take on less hours because you're burning yourself out. It could be that you are taking too many technique classes and not enough conditioning classes or cross training. So sometimes this doesn't have to do with the studio, but it is often that it happens where I see a dancer go to a studio because they liked one part of it and the other part just really isn't feeding to them. And so you kind of need to investigate and toy in your own head what a good fit for you is. And you're gonna know if after a year you still haven't progressed or you haven't seen any change, it's perhaps time to move on or reevaluate, your schedule. And so I'd say that is the third reason why it's time to look elsewhere. All right, you guys, the last thing I really want to add in here is the right way and the wrong way to leave a dance studio, because I do feel like there's a distinction here. And I feel that we can start with the wrong way because I've seen this happen before. You pack everything and you just leave and you don't give any sort of goodbyes whatsoever. And this is like emergency button only, that you do this in a situation where you're in danger. Actually, that's the only reason I can think about right now is any situation where you might be in danger. And so that's a situation where you don't even need to explain yourself, just leave. But the right way to leave would be to sit down with that studio director, or maybe even a teacher if the studio director isn't available, and just say XYZ reason why I need to leave. If you don't feel comfortable saying that, I would say, I feel that my time here is coming to a close and it's nothing that you did wrong or I did wrong. I just feel it's time for me to move on and look elsewhere, and I don't want there to be any hard feelings. I just want you to support me in this, and I want to support you in this transition as well, especially if you've been with a studio for a really long time and they have your name up on the website and pictures of you up on the wall. You want to make that transition as smooth as possible, because it is often that you have to go back and use that person as a reference or put that person on your professional resume. I danced at X place for X amount of years, and if anyone were to call them and they picked up the phone, there'd be no hard feelings whatsoever. Yep, it was just time for them to move on. They didn't really give a reason, or they gave X reason and I understood, and no hard feelings. And that's going to be so smart for you to do and kind of keep the ball in your court, so to speak. When you just pick everything up and leave because you have hard feelings, it leaves an awkward tension. You're not going to be able to use that person as a reference. It's going to be hard to put that on your professional dance resume, because if anyone would pick up the phone and call them and they were like, yeah, she kind of just left it in the dust, that's kind of a signal to that company that you have the potential to do that as well. And I don't know about today's day and age, but back then that was greatly a concern of mine. Was I wanted to be in good terms with everyone on my resume, that if anyone picked up the phone and called that person, be good correspondence and they wouldn't have anything negative to say. So it takes a really mature person to do that, to sit down and say, although I was hurt by this person, I'm gonna take the higher road and I'm gonna leave gracefully. So that would be my last piece of advice to you guys. And so those are the 3 reasons why I would say it is time for you to look elsewhere and leave your studio. This is a really hard thing to do, and I just remember the transition being really difficult, hard to make friends at the new studios, and finding my way and not wanting to step on any toes, and it just can get really slimy and really awkward sometimes. So just know you're not alone if that's your situation, and if you're going through that. It's happened to us before, and it's happened to plenty of us before, so you aren't alone in that one. Anyways, you guys, I had so much fun giving this information back to you. Sorry, my YouTube cut out, but I just wanted to finish a short little outro. Thank you everyone who's new here. Welcome. And if you're not new, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. The lighting is so weird. And hit the notification bell so you can get notifications on when I post. I will see y'all in a week. Bye.